Okay, Joy Bartlett, going back to January 6th, who actually did damage to the Capitol? Was it the FBI or the ones that were ushered in?
Well, I mean, I think you have to believe that a lot of the people who broke the windows and ran through those barricades and who hurled flagpoles and various things, they were protesters. You just can't say, oh, none of those people, they were all behaving beautifully. No, they weren't. There were some people who acted like thugs and who did criminal actions. I think they got overheated. I think they were people who got all hepped up and went and did it. But there's a couple of observations. Number one, they did not represent the apparently several 100,000 people that made it to Washington that day. And number two, Donald Trump didn't tell them to do that. It's not his fault they did it. If in fact what some of them did was a violation of the law, it violated when he told them from the podium, peacefully protest. And some of that wasn't peaceful. So were there government agents there? I'm convinced there were. I still want to know who this Ray Epps guy is. I want to know, how come he didn't get arrested? Right. He was on the FBI most wanted list one day, and then quietly that just went away. He went and talked to the January 6th committee, and supposedly when he got finished, they were all fine with it, even though he lied to them. He told them that he had sent a text to his nephew at 2:12 p.m. and said, I'm on my way back to the hotel, but I orchestrated the going into the Capitol. I orchestrated it. He said he left the Capitol at 2:12. At 2:41, the video that we saw this week showed that he was not only at the Capitol, he was still in the middle of stuff. And this idea that he wasn't there, we're seeing it on the screens now, there he is. And this was at 2:41 in the afternoon. So he lied to the committee by saying he had left. No, he hadn't. He was still there. Right. Why did they let him off the hook? Was he a Fed? I don't personally know the answer to that question. I have to kind of guess that either he was or he was an informant. Something doesn't add up there. Right. Other people went to jail for less than what this guy did when he was yelling into the microphone the day before saying, we've got to go into the Capitol. That's right, in the Capitol. So he is inciting a whole lot more of a riot than Donald Trump ever did. Nobody's going after him. So what gives? Yeah. We need to know. All right, we're going to go to this. We were talking about January 6th. Good point to bring this up. This is fascinating in that when Tucker Carlson aired just little pieces of what was over 40,000 hours of tape, this was the guy that got thrown in jail for 4 years. I wanted you to watch just a little clip of this.
Today, there is dispute over how Chansley got into the Capitol building. But according to our review of the internal surveillance video, it is very clear what happened once he got inside. Virtually every moment of his time inside the Capitol was caught on tape. The tapes show that Capitol Police never stopped Jacob Chansley. They helped him. They acted as his tour guides.
Yeah, now, whether they were his tour guides or they just sort of let him roam, they claimed later that it was to keep the situation from escalating. They thought if they tried to stop him. But, that's like saying we don't want to escalate a bank robbery. We're going to let the guy go ahead and rob the bank, and we'll deal with it a few months from now. I don't buy that. I don't buy it at all. Because if you're supposed to guard the Capitol and somebody's walking around that isn't supposed to be there, you should at least verbally say, sir, I'm sorry, you can't go any further than this door right here. You've got to stop, turn around, and go out. Then if he fought them, okay, arrest him. But they're just walking around with him. So something doesn't add up here. It just doesn't. And why they would put this guy away for 4 years, when you look at the total context of it, it's very difficult to really understand it.
What was Mitch McConnell thinking, attacking Tucker and Fox? The videos speak for themselves. What are your thoughts?
I was shocked that McConnell found such reaction to the fact that this was airing. Now, the one point I had a little disagreement with Tucker on was that Tucker almost painted it as if he ignored the fact that there was, in fact, a riot. He did show us video that we'd never seen before and needed to see, like the so-called QAnon shaman who was being escorted around the Capitol by Capitol police officers, none of whom stopped him. At one point, I think there were 13 different police officers that he encountered. None of them said, hey, you can't go there. They were basically waving him in. And they never showed him doing anything violent or destructive. Now, it was stupid of him to go sit in the chair of the Senate president. And it was some dumb things people did. But he's in prison for 4 years over that. And I'm not sure that makes any sense. Especially what I think is troubling is when we found out that his defense lawyers were never allowed to see that video. Now, here's what that means. The Department of Justice, in prosecuting this guy, failed to provide exculpatory evidence to the defense. That is an unconstitutional violation of this guy's basic rights. He has a right to see all the evidence that could be used against him and any evidence that might help him that the prosecutors have. They clearly didn't have that. I think this guy's going to get out. I think he will end up suing the government for malicious prosecution. And depending on if we have a judge who actually has read the Constitution, this guy's going to win.
Because he pled guilty, will that make it harder for him to get out?
Because his defense team was never given the evidence, I don't think it'll matter as much as that even his defense team were totally kept in the dark by the Department of Justice. So that's what constitutes more of a malicious prosecution when you say, yeah, here's what we have on you, but they don't give the full story.
Right, and as more and more evidence are made public, then that push is going to be in there for him to get out.
Here, let me finish this one thought. I think Tucker should have been more balanced because he said it was like a sightseeing tour. Okay, for most of the people there that day, it probably was. But let's not minimize. There were people who broke glass, who burst through barricades, who vandalized offices and hallways, and they did things that were, in fact, criminal. You cannot dismiss that. So I don't want to dismiss it. I don't want to be like that CNN reporter who said, well, here we are with mostly peaceful protests, and there were explosions and fires going off right behind him. It was bizarre. So Tucker, I think, should have been a little bit more balanced in presenting that there were riots, there were people who were doing criminal activity, but it was not the overwhelming edited version that the January 6th committee showed.
Well, I'm sure David Indiana, in his comment here, kind of captures what a lot of people think. When has the January 6th committee been honest about anything?
Never.
So that's, yeah.
I mean, they haven't. And I think Liz Cheney, Adam Kinzinger, the two so-called, I call them the Pelosi Republicans, because she handpicked them and they were more than willing to serve because they hate Trump so much. But they're disgusting and despicable. And I'm glad Liz Cheney was overwhelmingly defeated in her congressional race. And guess where Adam Kinzinger ended up? On CNN. Wow, what a shock. They found them a Republican that they could count on to trash the Republican Party. And there he is, getting a paycheck for doing it. What I find really troubling is that the January 6th committee has never been held accountable for it not being a legitimate hearing. They hired a very slick news producer from ABC, and he put together all this tape in a very highly edited, and now we find out, not just edited, but enhanced. All the crowd noises and things that you heard, that was not on the original. They edited that in because the video surveillance didn't have audio. So that's not just maybe out of context. That is truly a lie.
Right, they've added dramatic effect.
Yeah. It's like adding the movie score to a movie. Yes, it creates the effect, but was there music playing on Normandy Beach in the opening scenes of Saving Private Ryan? No, they add that for effect. So this was not a hearing, it was a TV show. Let's never forget that. Hey, thanks for sticking around. Since you made it here to the end, that must mean you liked the video. So you might as well subscribe and hit that notification bell below. But if you really hated it, just click the like button 3 times.